Today, we are going to be taking a look at the integrated solution between Unblu and our client lifecycle management solution, CLMi. We're going to show today 3 use cases to highlight the value of that integrated solution and to demonstrate some of the capabilities that offers. We'll begin by showing the existing conversation that a customer might have with his relationship manager, how that conversation is initiated, how that conversation is continued. We will then talk about how other members of the business, perhaps specialist teams or other departments, can be brought into that conversation, either on a transparent basis to the customer, i.e. they can see they are part of that conversation, or on a hidden basis, such that the owner of the conversation, the advisor or relationship manager, can seek other people's input and advice in the background, but it looks as though all the responses and updates are coming directly from the advisor. We'll then talk a little bit about how the conversations can be used to initiate other meetings, tasks, activities, cases seamlessly, and how that tie between the Unblu interactions and the subsequent meeting activity case is represented within the CLM solution CLMi, before finishing up by talking a little bit around how we can switch between some of the different channels. For example, if we wanted to switch to an audio or video channel, or if the customer wanted to initiate a screen share. So we're beginning here logged into the customer portal as Robert Dupont. As you can see here, everything that we're going to be showing you today is in the context of an onboarded live customer, but it would be equally applicable to a prospect who is going through onboarding using perhaps our own digital onboarding solutions. So in order to initiate or pick up an existing conversation, the customer clicks in the bottom right-hand side, and he can see here that there's one already open conversation with Christian Martin, who is his relationship manager. And we're picking up here on the idea of what we call the perpetual conversation, and that's the idea that we can leave a priority channel of communication, i.e. between a customer and his relationship manager or advisor, permanently open to give them more of that sort of high touch, always available impression, as opposed to that slightly more sort of detached feeling of waiting for a randomly assigned agent. So it's really another channel that's broadening the existing relationship with the relationship manager and enhancing that, rather than replacing that traditional connection and relationship with the relationship manager. So clicking on the conversation here, I can see the entire history. And what we're going to do is initiate a new conversation. So I'm going to say here as the customer, hi, Robert here. Can you help me with a couple of queries on your new ESG funds? Okay, so I'm going to initiate that conversation here as the customer, and what we'll see is that that'll be picked up on within CLMi. So if I come over to CLMi and go to my notifications bar, I can see here that I have 9 seconds ago a new message via the Unblu channel. Clicking on that will take me directly through to that message, or here I can see I'm already on Robert's 360-degree view, and within the inbox here I can see all of those communications for Robert. So if I click through to my inbox with Robert, I can see here that conversation which has been updated just 30 seconds or so ago with that message from Robert. So I'm able to explore this recent conversation in the context of his wider 360-degree view and all the other interactions that we may be having with Robert via whatever channel. Now, looking at the context of his question here, what I may want to do is directly respond, and I may want to bring into this conversation a particular specialist. I may want to bring into the conversation perhaps a member of the product team. And I may want to do that either on a transparent basis, or as I mentioned in the introduction, on a hidden basis. So what I can do here is go to the list of participants, and I can choose to invite another participant. So I can see here actually that we've already spoken to Cedric as a secondary agent, and he has already provided advice to Robert on specific products before. So that might be my priority, to bring Cedric into the conversation again. Alternatively, what I might want to do, perhaps if Cedric is offline, as I can see here, is invite a broader team. So I could say here, actually, I want to bring any available specialists into the conversation to answer this directly, as opposed to bringing in Cedric as a Pacific specialist who may perhaps be offline. And then, as you see, I can invite them into the conversation on either a visible participation basis or on a hidden participation basis. And what that looks like, if I scroll a little bit up to an earlier example where we've done that, where Cedric and I were both online together, is you can see here in response to the customer's question, we can offer a transparent response, which the customer can see here. And if I zoom in a little bit, that's indicated by the fact there is no locked sign against that conversation. That means it's transparent to the customer. So if I go over to the customer's side of the conversation, we'll see he can see that message there. Yes, I have it. I have the extra information that you were looking for on that fund. If we go to the internal conversation, we can see that that secondary message is actually hidden to say that Cedric needs the latest version of the document or doesn't have the current one. So there's an action there for him to go and find that before it's shared over to the customer. And because that is a hidden internal message, if I go over to the customer side, he can't see that part of the conversation. So we have the options there as to what we want to make transparent and what we don't want to make transparent over to the customer. Now, once I had the relevant document either passed to me transparently via Christian or directly passed to me by Cedric in a hidden fashion, or directly passed from Cedric to the customer as a sort of visible member of the conversation. Now, if we look at a slightly different use case, so if the customer perhaps has finished in this conversation, he says, one more thing, please may I update you on my latest address. What we'll see is that, again, I get a notification back on the other side. And what I'm able to do now is link this recent conversation, this interaction I'm having now, into a series of follow-up actions or engagements. So if I go to related records over here, what you'll see I can do is add a change of circumstance. And I can do that just by clicking the quick create button here, initiating a change of circumstance case directly from the interaction, and that will automatically tie those two things together. So as you can see here, I've already created one of those. That's going to take me straight through to the change of circumstance case. And here we can see that on that change of circumstance case, I have the history of the conversation. So within the change of circumstance, I can see exactly why this has been initiated. And if I go here to the details of the change of circumstance, you'll see that as part of that, we're requiring a proof of address. So what I can do if I've got this conversation immediately open with the customer is come down to the open conversation here, and I can say, please can you share over your latest proof of address. What the customer is then able to do is use the same document sharing channel that we saw earlier and to attach his utility bill here. Okay, so I'm going to upload that utility bill example, and share that directly over. And looking at that on the other side, what we can do is then use that to fulfill the change of circumstance. So I could download that. Okay, I can pick that up and use that to fulfill the proof of address requirement, in which case we'd progress the whole workflow forward, and it would automatically then trigger the review and validation step, where that would be approved by the relevant member of staff and that change of address solidified. So, okay, so now let's take a look at a slightly different and final couple of use cases. So the second might be if Robert wants to say, for example, one last thing, in Geneva next week, any chance we could meet to discuss recent performance and market conditions. So again, we can use the same capability back within CLMi. Here in this instance, we want to create a related activity. So that's an upcoming meeting. You can see one I've already created here earlier. I'll show you that just in a moment. But the idea here is that I can quickly create that. All I need to do, the system's going to pre-assign who's regarding. I save that conversation or that prospective meeting down. And then again, the system will make the link between the two for me automatically. So I can see here from the Unblu conversation that there's been a related meeting set up. And here I can see in my wider inbox with the customer, here is the related meeting. And I can see that as part of that related meeting, if I go to the related records for that meeting, I'm going to see the reverse of that, the Unblu conversation from which the meeting's been initiated. So we've got that complete transparency on both sides there. One last thing to demonstrate, and that is the ability to switch to different channels at any stage. So let's take a scenario where, if we go a little bit further up this chat and look at some of the history, we can see here that the customer has shared over to us, as we saw earlier, that proof of address. That what you'll see here is that actually the quality of the image isn't brilliant, and two, second to that, the address looks like it's missing some information. It doesn't have a postcode or a zip code, for example. So when we're reviewing that on the other side, we may want to, perhaps as our proof of address, say actually we weren't able to accept that. If I go back to the change of circumstance, I'm going to say we've looked at the proof of address. There is a slight issue. Can I call you to explain? So what I might be able to do there is initiate the different channel. The customer might call me, so I can switch here to a voice call, a video call, and you'll also see, as we'll see just in a moment, that there's the ability to supplement that with a screen share as well. What I can do is initiate a co-browse with the customer. Okay, and this might be supplemented by the call as well, but I could make it very clear if the customer says, for example, I can't speak at the moment, in a meeting. What I can do here is annotate to the customer. So I can say here, for example, it's this particular area that I'm referring to. I need a postcode. I can either do that temporarily, or I can leave a permanent markup of that for the customer, write some text on it. So we're going to leave it there for today. Hopefully that gives you what you need.